Good morning. 102. We are at 102A. I mean, it's the first wide line, maybe about 10 lines down. Okay, so discussion if Moshe Rabbeinu was had the status of a king. First we had Cohen, then we had king. So this idea, if he had a status of king or not, is going to be the status if he was a Cohen or not is going to be a debate in the Tanaim. As it says, Kitanai, Vayichar Afashem, by the burning bush. Vayichar Afashem Moshe, he kept not saying yes to be the leader, so Hashem got angry. So now, Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha Omer, Kol Paranafshem B'Torah Nemer Bo Roshem, the Zelo Nemer Bo Roshem. Rabbi Yeshua points out that every time it has that language of Paro and Ah, literally means anger through the nose. That's, a person steaming. But he says whenever that is in the Torah, it always falls a Roshem. Roshem literally means like an imprint, but it means that there's an action that happened. He got angry and he got angry and he. In this case, it says Hashem got angry and that's it. It doesn't say anything. So, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, no, here there's also a follow-up of the anger. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, Av ze nemar bo Roshem. Shenemar, it says, Halo Aaron achicha halevi. Hashem, in that conversation, very interesting, it says, Aaron, your brother, the Levi. So one's like, why are you calling Aaron a Levi? The Halo Kohen, who he's a Kohen. Hachikama. This is the way Rabbi Shimon understands these verses. Ania Marti Ata Kohen Mehu Levi. I first told you, Moshe, you're a Kohen, and Aaron's a Levi. Interesting. So when exactly did he say that? So, but this is from the first encounters with him. And originally, you're a Kohen, he's a Levi. But now that I'm upset at you, Achshav hu Kohen va'ata Levi. But now he's going to be a Kohen, and you're going to be a Levi. So Hashem is referring to Aaron as a Levi. That was the original plan. But now that he's upset, he's going to switch it. He's going to take away Moshe's kahuna and give it to Aaron, and give Aaron's Leviah to Moshe. To get to make sure you tell the Gabbai that Shabbos, because he He kept giving Moshe the first Aliyah and Aaron the second Aliyah. You can give brothers back to back. Okay, I don't know. But we're gonna see that in a second. So what do you see? This opinion held he's a Kohen. He's a Kohen. The third opinion is that no, not that he was never a Kohen, not that he was always a Kohen. It's only a Kohen for the days of the inauguration of the tabernacle. Okay, that's fourth opinion. What it means is Kahuna never left the descendants of Moshe. Shinamar, but Moshe Ishalukim Banav Yikro Al Shevet Levi. Moshe, the man of God, his children will be called on the Shevet Levi, meaning he was a Kohen. However, the Kahuna left his descendants. He was a Kohen, but it didn't fall through his descendants. As it says, when Moshe was a man of God, and his children will be called Al Shevet HaLevi, as Levites. But he himself was a Kohen. You see here in this brisa different opinions. Did Moshe have the status of a Kohen or not? Now, this is a pretty explicit verse, but we have another proof of this. V'omer, what we say in davening on Friday night. Moshe and Aaron, the Kohanah. Moshe and Aaron were in their priestlyhood. And Shmuel, the Korishma. Shmuel called it in his name. So, what do you see? Moshe and Aaron were in their priestlyhood. Clearly, Moshe is referred to as a Kohen. Says about 1 second, why do you have to have two proofs? You just told me Moshe was a man of God, and his children are going to be called on Shevet Levi, but he himself was a Kohen. What's the second proof that him and Aaron were in their priestlyhood? Ma'i v'omer. Says maybe you'll think the chitema l'doros u'dechsev. Maybe you'll say that this is only rated for later generations, that the children are not going to be kohanim. To that it says v'omer Moshe v'Aaron kohanav. That it's to that it tells you Yeah, maybe you'll think that it's not that Moshe's children were Levites, but he was a Kohen. And maybe you'll think that that first verse was referring to, yeah, they were all the descendants of Moshe were all Leviim, even including Moshe. That's how you could have read the verse. But now we say, no, look at this other verse. Ve'omer, Moshe v'Aaron b'kohanav, that Moshe and Aaron were both in their priesthood. That tells you clearly that Moshe himself was a Kohen, and therefore, but it did not continue through the children. Yeah. Okay, so this brisa itself has two opinions: was Moshe a Kohen or not? And therefore, funny, Rav said he's a Kohen Gadol. I wondered, yeah, that was our original problem. We had 5 problems with that, 4 or 5 problems with that. I wonder, these opinions that say he's a Kohen, it means he's a Kohen Gadol. Only Kohen around, what else is he going to be? If it's just you and Aaron, so then presumably a Kohen there meant you're the Kohen Gadol, there's no one else. Yeah. What would be the practical difference of Moshe being a Kohen Gadol or a Kohen? Keep certain laws, meaning what? Practically, what would be that? Maybe eating the food if he's an onain, things like that, wearing priestly garments. I don't know, you have to know. Okay. Now, we mentioned this idea where it says charon af. It's a phraseology referring to anger, but kol charon af return memorable roshem. Is that really true that whenever it says charon af, anger, it follows with some kind of imprint? There's an action that follows. It says perfect transition into the next book of the Torah. We have a lot of shmos here. So it says Moshe left Paro, v'yitzim in Paro, b'chari af, very angry. After one of the times, he said, let my people go. And he said, no again. They left angry. So it doesn't say anything that he did anything. Just he left angry. But the other opinion said that every time it has that language, it's followed with an action. It's not regular anger. It's an anger that has an action. So what action was here? He just left angry and that's it. So now, Amar Reish Lakish, Stara v'yatza, gave a nice whack on the face and then exited. Now, ask the Gemara one second. We're going to see Reish Lakish is going to have another context how respectfully Moshe treated Paro. But would it make sense that the same Reish Lakish would hold that he disrespectfully smacked him in the face? So, for me, Amar Reish Lakish, Haggid did Reish Lakish when they say this, Hagsiv in the pasuk, V'nitzaf the Krosa, where it says earlier, go to Paro in the morning. He's standing by the river. Now it says you should be V'nitzaf the Likra'aso. You should stand to go call him. Now, is that a positive thing or a negative thing? What does it mean to stand there to call him, to greet him? What does it mean? So, the Amar Reish Lakish said what it means is, listen, Moshe, he's a melech, he's a king, his will upon him. You have to show him respect. So you go out there to greet him, respectfully, even though he's an evil king. That's very good. So yeah, we'll keep that one between me and you. Rabbi Yochanan says, Russia. No, Paro's a Russia. The Hayes Panecha. No, go across from him and show him disrespect. But you see that Reish Lakish was the one that says that he's very that you have to be respectful to him. So it'd be very hard to understand that the same Reish Lakish that you have to be respectful to Paro was the same one who held you smack him in the face. You're right. In lieu of that other Reish Lakish, this case, April. You have to switch Reish Lakish and the other opinion. That really Reish Lakish was the one that said to treat him respectfully, and Rabbi Yochanan was the one that says to treat him. Sorry, Reish Lakish was the one that said to treat him disrespectfully, and Rabbi Yochanan was the one that says to treat him respectfully, and therefore the two statements of Reish Lakish fit very nicely. Okay. Speaking of kings, once we mentioned kings and how we treat them, so now, Rabbi Yana says, you should always have a fear of kingship upon you. As it says, again in Shmos, when it talks about Makas Bechoros, so Moshe tells Paro, Ela Eli, so all your servants are going to come to me, and they're going to bow down to me, and they're going to tell me I can leave. Now, Paro was going to be smitten too, but he didn't say, you're going to come to me and tell me I should leave. That'd be disrespectful, meaning He's saying, we're going to put such dread on your country that all your servants are going to come to me and say, please, please just leave our country. But he didn't include Paro in that statement. Paro's the king. It'd be disrespectful to tell the king that you're going to come begging on my doorstep. But even the day lo kamerle, he didn't say the Paro, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Hafa. Rabbi Yochanan is another proof that Achav was a wicked king, and Eliyahu Navi was told to go run in front of him, that he shouldn't go by himself, and escorting him, it should be honorable for the king to not go by himself, even though he was an evil king. The Hadasham Haisel Eliyahu. The Hadasham Haisel Eliyahu. By Yishanim Masna, by Yaretz Nefei Achav, and he ran in front of Achav because it's not respectful to let Achav the king, even though he's an evil king, to go by himself. So therefore, you should go with him and escort him. You see, there's something about kingship where, even though the person is an evil king, one time I heard a whole class about this. Rabbi walked in and gave a whole class about this when a certain president was elected 1.5 terms ago. So people are saying such disrespectful things about him. That he brought 2 Rashis in Chumash, not even our Gemara. That's it. Even though somebody might not be someone who you like or who you think is, but still, there's a level of respect honored, accorded even to someone who's evil. In this case, the mamish evil. I don't know if that person he was talking about was evil, or maybe disrespectful, maybe immoral. I don't know if it's evil. This Achav was an evil king. Paro was a wicked king, right? So, fine. Now, Omer Ula says, back to Moshe and his kingship. Bikesh Moshe Malchus v'lo nasnalo. Interesting. All the humility of Moshe, and it says he requested kingship, and it was not granted. So, Dichsiv, by that burning bush. But on the one hand, he argued for I think 2 weeks. The Gemara says in one place, not to be the leader. Our Gemara says he requested the kingship, and Hashem said no. V'lo nasnulo dichsiv al tikriv halom. This word halom is like a cryptic word, and we're going to prove that it refers to kingship. Dichsiv al tikriv halom. Don't come close to the kingship. So rather, take off your shoes from your feet. Interesting. Now, what does the word halom mean? The ein halom ela malchus. Halom is referring to kingship. How do I know? Because it says by Shmuel when they were appointing a king, they wanted a king. So it says, no, sorry, not when they were appointing it. That's going to be later. It says by David Melech. It says Vayobo Melech David. He sat in front of Hashem and he said, "Vayomer mi anochi, umi basi ki havi ad halom." That you brought me up to here, up to this place of my kingship. So you see that the word halom by David Melech is referring to becoming a king. Now, Masiv Rava, Rabbi Shmuel Omer Yevama Melech. So we had earlier that Elisheva had 5 incredibly happy things that she had that day. One was her brother-in-law was the king. One is her brother was the leader of the tribe. One was that her husband's the Kohen Gadol. Her son's the deputy. Her grandson is Pinchas. She's very happy in 5 ways. But the first one was my brother-in-law is the king. Well, what do you see? Moshe was a king. She says my brother-in-law is a king. Here we're saying his request was denied. So and Elisheva we had said that it was granted. So Amarava, we never meant to say that he wasn't a king. What we meant to say was that the request that he had was for him and his descendants to be king. Amarava lo ulazaro kamer. That's what he wanted. He wanted that his descendants should be kings. It should continue through their lineage. Yeah, interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't have to fit it in, but it says that Shifra and Pua, which was Miriam and Yocheved, it says their reward for saving the Jewish people was I think they got the Levia was passed down, and the kingship. Going to go through Yehuda. I don't know. Yeah. Fine. Either way, here Moshe requests the kingship for himself and his descendants, and that was not granted. But he himself was the king. And that doesn't say, according to this now, our conclusion, it never says that Moshe requested kingship. It could be Hashem made him king, whatever that means. It could be that was Hashem's way of saying you're the leader, you're the king. But what he did request was that it should continue through his children. Now, yeah. Now, on that now in our conclusion, when it said the word halom by the burning bush, it was not referring to Moshe requesting kingship. It was referring that the kingship should go to his descendants. It should be passed down through the children. So now we're asking the Kol Heicha Dechsiv, that cryptic word halom, does it refer to generation? Is that really true? But look, Hagabe Shaul, when Shaul was going to be appointed the king. So he said, bring this person here. So it says there, this is Havo Od Halom Ishu. It says Od Halom Ish. It says the word Halom by Ish, by Shaul, and Shaul's kingship was not passed down. So you tell me the word Halom means for him and for the generations, but by Shaul it wasn't that way. So who in Zarolo, he was king, not his children. So says the Gemara, two answers. Ibais Ema Hahava Ishboshes. Well, we had Ishboshes. Ishboshes was his son. He was king for a few years. It didn't last, but it still went on some level to a descendant. Ibais Ema Shiny Shaul Nafilu Begavelo Kaim. Shaul is different because Shaul's kingship didn't even last. He didn't finish his term. So the word halom means sounds like you lived out your term, and then it goes to the generation. By Shaul, though, he didn't even finish his term. So once it was terminated for the generations also. But that was his own fault. Really, it was supposed to last for Shaul the entire time and go through his descendants. But he caused it to be uprooted from himself. Kid the Rebbe Lazar, Rabbi Chanina, the Shash post him Gedula at the time where we give Gedula Adam, post not to give, to stop, right? Yeah, to stop, right? At the time where you stop the kingship from the person. No, before that.
But if as a result of his greatness he becomes haughty.
Before that.
God does not withdraw his eyes from a righteous person.
Before that? Right there.
When the heavenly host assigns greatness to a person.
Oh, assigned, okay. So when he gives him greatness, when he gives greatness la'adam, so it's not just to him. It goes to him and his descendants. Poskim lo ulazaro ad sof kol hadoros. It's going to go until the end of all the generations. Shenamar lo yiger mitzadik eino. That's malachim l'kisei. I'm not going to diminish from a tzaddik or from the kings his kingship. However, v'mhegiz daito. But if a person gets haughty, if the king gets haughty, so what's going to happen? He's going to bring you down. Yeah. Shenamar, as the verse says, v'masurim bazikim hilachim b'chaleoni. And if a person is yeah, what was the first part of the verse?
Lowers him, stated in the next verse, they are bound.
Because it's the very next verse. That if you're caught on the chains, then and you'll be in poverty, that'll be the only way we're gonna stop the kingship or the greatness from you and your generation. Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly enough, one of the Rishonim says, how do I know this? A haughty person gets lowered down. Look at the way the world works, the way the water cycle goes. It goes up to the clouds and right back down. And anyway, anything that gets too high, it's going to come right back down. But yeah. Okay, fine. Now, back to our scheduled programming. Yeah. So it says in the Mishnah that a Baal Mum, that really people who are not fit to partake in the service are not really fit to have a portion of the sacrifices. That was the line in the Mishnah. But then it said that a Baal Mum, a blemish Kohen, whether it's a permanent blemish or it's a temporary blemish, he is allowed to partake in the sacrifice, in the offerings, and he's allowed to eat them. So now, Bali Mumin, Minoha Nimili, what's the source that a blemished Kohen can partake? Now, yeah. So Minoha Nimili, the Tana Rabbanan, Kol Zachar, all males. Kol Zachar, L'Rabos, Bali Mumin. The word Kol includes even a Baal Mum, even someone who is blemished. Okay. Now, what is he included for? Eating or having a portion? Now, simply understood, at the end of the day, after David and Melech, all the Kohanim were divided up into 24 groups. They're called the 24 watches. 24 mishmaros. And each one of the 24 groups was divided into 7 groups, and each one of those served that day. So that's the day where you're serving, you're going to get a portion of the chatas or whatever offering is going to come your way. So one of those people is a blemish Kohen, can he or can he not partake? If it's his day, does he get a portion? It's it's the Stiber day to serve. So, but one of the Stibers, unfortunately, I don't know, he got an injury. So he can't partake. No, he could, because how do you know kol zachar? But what is he partaking in? Lemai. If it's le'achila to eat, that a Baal Mum is allowed to eat, arei kvar namar lechem elakav mekacha kedashim yochal. He's allowed to eat. He's allowed to eat from the holy sacrifices. Yeah, Ella, it must be including lechaluka. It must be included, not that he can eat, but he actually gets a portion. He's included in the people that get a portion. So not just that someone gives it to him, he can eat it, but he actually gets his own portion. He has the right to a portion. That's one price. Next price, tiny ida kol zachar l'rabbas bali lumen. The word kol comes to include a blemish kohanim. What does it come to include it for? Lemai. Ilach, if it's for eating, harei kvar omer. It already says that he's included for eating. Ilach haluka harei kvar omer. It's also included. Sheyachol. I would have thought though, ainli alatam benasa balmum. What kind of blemish to Kohen? Maybe it's only one who is good and then becomes blemished. However, balmumi karo. Let's say he was originally blemished from the get-go. I don't know. Maybe he was born with a blemish. So that who says such a Kohen can also receive. So Talmud Lomar, Talmud Lomar Kol Zachar. That's coming to include Kol Zachar, even a Kohen who was blemished from the get-go. Okay, fourth price, a tiny Ida Kol Zachar L'Ravas Balmum. It says Kol Zachar to include a Balmum, a blemished Kohen, for what? Lemai. Ilach Ila Harei Kar Amar. If it's for eating, it already is stated. Ilach Haluka, if it's for a portion, Harei Kar Amar, it's already stated. Vila Balmum Kar Harei Kar Amar. And if it's for a Balmum who's a blemish from the get-go and not just later on, that's already stated. However, you would have thought like this, Sheyachol. You would have thought, Ainli Ela Balmum Kavua. There's going to be a backward logic we're going to ask in a second. You would have thought that the only Kohen that's included in eating is going to be, or in partaking, is going to be a Kohen has a permanent blemish. A guy has no arm. Permanent blemish. However, Balmum over is a temporary blemish. How do you know even he's included? That's backward logic, because a permanent wound is much worse than a yet. So we're going to ask in a second on that. Talmud Lomar Kol Zachar. It says Kol Zachar coming to include a temporary blemish, a temporary wound of a Kohen. Says the Gemara, Kape Laya, which way is your logic going? The way of saying it, backward logic. How can you tell me that a permanent wound is more easily understood than a temporary wound? You're right. You have to switch it. Either amend the brisa to mean that really what was included first is a temporary wound. Kol Zachar comes to include a permanent wound. That's one answer. Rav Ashi Omar La'olam Lo Teipach. Rav Ashi says, no, don't switch it. And you actually would have thought that maybe a permanent wounded, a blemished Kohen, he partakes, but not a temporary blemish. Now, how does that make any sense? It's backwards logic. No, but it's true. You would have thought, turning the page, you would have thought that a temporary blemish would be similar to someone who's impure. That's what you would have thought. You would have thought that because it's temporary, so it's only a matter of time until you'll get better. So we will disqualify you for that matter of time. A permanent blemish, okay, that the Torah included you. But here, just like someone who's impure, we don't allow him to partake, even though that's only temporary. So to here, that's what you would have thought. Kamash Malan Kol Zachar. That Kol Zachar teaches you don't think that way. That whether you're a temporary blemish or a permanent blemish, at the end of the day, you are able to partake and eat in the korbanos. Okay. Now, the way the Mishnah phrased it, it basically sounds like a contradiction from one line to the next. We point this out at the time. Why? Because it says, the first thing it says is, it says the Bali Mumin, the blemish Kohanim, are able to have a portion and eat of the sacrifices. Okay, but they can't bring it up. The next line is, anybody who's not fit to serve doesn't get a portion of the meat. Except for a blemish Kohen. So that itself is a little bit of an internal contradiction, and that we're going to address right now. So The low, what do you mean? That line that says anybody who's not fit to serve doesn't get a portion. What do you mean? Your previous line in the Mishnah. What happened to a blemish Kohen? That's one question, that he's not fit to serve and he still gets a portion. So how can you make the general rule when it's not true? That's one. And now we're going to, what's the implication of that statement? We're going to go with the implication and then we're going to reject the implication. But what's the implication? Anybody who is not fit to serve does not get a portion. Opposite of that will be the implication. Anybody who is fit to serve does get a portion, which would mean that if you find somebody who gets a portion but cannot serve, it's going to be a problem. Let's say a minor. We're going to see a minor can eat, cannot serve. So we have one question on the actual statement, and we're going to have another question on the implication of the statement. So the question on the statement itself is a blemish Kohen. The question on the implication is, let's see, Vesuva haray lavoda, Kollel. If you can serve, if you're fitting to serve, so then you do get a portion. 1 second. Haray tame bikorbanos sibor, someone who is impure. So by communal offerings, diroy lavoda, he is fit to serve, but he doesn't get a portion. So 1 second. You just told me that the implication of the statement is, if you are fitting to serve, you get a portion. I'll show you somebody who is fitting to serve and does not get a portion. An impure Kohen by a communal sacrifice, let's say by the Pesach. Fitting to serve, no portion. So that's our question. So says the Gemara, well, we're not talking about somebody who's who actually, only if he actually serves, gets a portion. We're saying we're saying someone who's fit to eat, not someone who's fit to serve, someone who's fit to eat. So, so someone who is fit to eat is fitting to get a portion. A tummy person is not fit for eating, therefore he's not fit for getting a portion. Okay. The hare katan, what about a katan, a minor? He's fitting to eat, and he does not get a portion. So that's another problem. So we're trying to figure out on the implication of our Mishnah. It sounds like either we're going to have a problem if it means someone who's fitting to serve is fitting to eat, that's a problem, or someone who's fitting to eat is fitting to get a portion is also a problem. So to that we answer ha lo katani. We never taught that statement. That was all an implication. So we're saying now don't imply that. All the Mishnah is telling us is someone who is not fit to serve does not get a portion. Do not infer anything from there. Oh, but if you are fitting, then you are. No, we're not. We never taught that. You inferred that, but that's not what the Mishnah was referring to. Therefore, the questions are going to fall away. Those two questions of a katan and an impure person were all from the implication. Say that there's no implication. Well, hold on. If there's no implication, so then it's the olam k'dikarami ikara. Then you can read it like it's originally was stated, that anybody who is not fitting to serve does not get a portion. And so, and 1 second. 1 second. Yeah, so on that we say, he said, once we got to this point and we're not learning from the implication, so then you can learn the Mishnah like we said originally. And imishum tame lokatani. And what are you going to ask me? Well, if the implication sounds like someone who is fit to serve should not be able should be able to partake. Therefore, we had a problem with someone who's impure, who's fit to serve and cannot partake. No, tame lokatani. We're not talking about that case, and therefore it's not going to be a problem. Okay. I'll ask on the actual line of the Mishnah, the imishum balmum. Okay, but a blemished person, the line before you told me that a blemished Kohen can partake even though he cannot serve. Now we say, yeah, Rachmana Rabbi, that's an exception. And the Torah specifically included him. But the rule of thumb is, if you don't serve, then you don't get a portion. This one's included. the balmum is included. Okay, now the Gemara says that the Mishnah said even someone who's impure at the time of the throwing of the blood, but later on when they're burning the fats, he is pure. He still does not get a portion. So you have to be. What's the implication? Hatahor b'shas rikas damin. Yeah. So the implication is it's only because you were impure at the time of the throwing of the blood. Even if you're pure later, it doesn't matter. So the implication is the other way. Hatar b'shas rikas damin. If you're pure when the blood is thrown, and you're impure later on, and when they're burning the fats, then you do get a portion. Kollel, because you were pure at the time of the throwing of the blood. The throwing of the blood, the sprinkling, that's the determining factor. So if that's true, that's not like the opinion of Abba Shol. Masnisin de lo Abba Shol. What did Abba Shol say? The Tanya, Abba Shol, Omer lo Olameno, Lache Tar B'Shas Rika, Achas Hektar Chalav, and the only person who gets to partake and eat in the sacrifices is somebody who is pure at the time of the throwing of the blood and the time of the in the evening time when they're burning the fats. The Amar Kra, how do I know? Hamakar v'esadam hashlamim, that's achela. Now, filu hektar chalavim nami bayi. To partake, you have to also be pure even at the time of the burning of the fat, and that's in the evening time. So our Mishnah is not like Abba Shol, but it says you have to be pure at both periods of time. Now, interesting. Abba Shol only said you have to be pure at both periods. He didn't say you have to be pure throughout the whole time. So if the throwing of the blood was, 9 a.m. and the burning was 9 p.m., so what if you were pure at 9 and pure at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., but at 2 p.m. you got impure and then you purified yourself? So what did he mean? He meant throughout the entire time you have to stay pure? Or he just meant as long as the two endpoints you're good, then you are good to go. So now, what happens if you get impure in the middle? When Abba Shol said his statement, what did he mean? As long as the two endpoints you're pure, you're good to go, even if you're impure in the middle. Or no, he meant to say from point A to point B the entire time you're pure, and in this case you were impure in the middle, therefore you're not going to partake. We have no teku. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Amar Rava Hayidina mi Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shimon Gamrina. We learned the following law from Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Shimon, which he set over in the bathroom. Now, at that point, it's totally irrelevant. However, we're going to ask at the end, what do you mean? How can you teach Torah in the bathroom? Now, from the end of the Gemara, it sounds like, I don't think it's that he was speaking in the bathroom. It sounds like the Gemara is going to ask on him, how is he thinking Torah in the bathroom? That's going to be the, but okay. But the point's really totally parenthetical to the conversation, but it's just going, this is how the story went. So, yeah. Now, what was he thinking about? So, Danta, okay, so now we're going to have, basically, imagine the scene. We're going to have a Tvul Yom. A Tvul Yom is somebody who is waiting for nightfall to be pure. He went to mikvah. All he has to do is wait for what we call Harav Shemesh, the sun to set, and then he's in a state of purity. So, but he wants now portions of the food. So we're going to sort of act out a conversation between him and a bunch of Kohanim. And he's going to claim, I get a portion of the food. And they're going to each reject him through a different Kal Vachomer. He's going to fight back through his Kal Vachomer, and that's going to go through like 4 or 5 korbanos. So, but Tvul Yom comes at Tvul Yom and says the following. The Omar, came li mincha. Give me a portion of the mincha. I want to eat a portion of the mincha. So now, the Kohen, who's a regular Kohen, tells him back, Amar lo, uma'im b'makom, sheyafe kochacha, b'chatascha, and yet dichisicha, mechatas Yisrael, makom shehura kochacha, b'minchascha, eino din shadicha l'minchas Yisrael. So, like we mentioned, there's these 24 watches and the 7 days of the week that the Kohanim serve. So when it's your day, you get a portion of all of those, a portion of all the meat that's brought that day that is fit for the Kohanim. However, if you're bringing your own sin offering, so it doesn't matter if it's your day or not. You always get a portion of your own sin off. So this Kohen tells him like this. He says, just like in the place where your strength is very strong with your own sin offering, where you get a portion, regardless if it's your day, not your day. I push you away. You don't get a portion of the sin offering of a regular Yisrael. So even in the world of a chatas, where if it was your chatas, you'd get a portion, but yet I could still push you away from getting a portion of someone else's chatas, meaning if it's not your day, I push you away. So makom shehura kocha b'minchascha. But when it comes to the mincha offering that you want a portion in, eino din shadicha minchas Yisrael, where your power is weakened because you want a portion of the mincha, but today's not your day. I don't have to give you a portion of the mincha. So there where your power is weakened, I can for sure push you away from giving you a portion of the minchas Yisrael. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the mincha offering happens to be that when a Kohen brings a mincha offering, he does not get any portion. Only when a Yisrael brings a mincha offering that he gets a portion. I think it's a explicit verse in Vayikra. If he brings his own mincha offering, his own flour offering, he doesn't get a portion. So that's what he's saying. By the chatas is the strongest, because even when it's not your day, if you bring a chatas, we still give you a portion. Mincha is the weakest, because even when you go and you voluntarily bring it, a mincha offering, you get zero. So if in a place where you really deserve a lot, I push you away from an offering of another Jew, I don't give you a portion because you're a tvul yom, you're still level of impurity. For sure, by a case where it's much weaker, your stake in this korban, in the sacrifice, for sure I can push you away. That's the logic. So now he responds back, yeah, but you're pushing me away from the chatas of a Jew. So that area of a chatas is just like you have a strong power because you get your own portion. If you would bring a chatas, okay, so then so you could push me away. However, how do you push me away from a mincha offering? In a mincha, we're the same. Your power is weakened too. If you were to bring you Kohen who's pure, were to bring your flour offering, you can't eat it either. So I understand by a chatas where you have very strong power. I hear you want to push me away, but here we're both in the same boat. We both can't partake. Even a pure Kohen can't partake in a mincha offering. So what gives you the right to push me away? That logic is flawed because you're just as weak as I am when it comes to a flour offering. So, that's the fight back. To that he says, Harehu Omer, Lakoin Amakriv Osa, Lo Tihia, Hakari Ba'achol. The verse states that only someone who is Makriv, who brings up the sacrifice, he gets a portion of the sacrifice. So you, Tvul Yom, who's awaiting sunset to become pure, you, Tvul Yom, who's awaiting sunset to become pure, you can't bring a sacrifice. So at the end of the day, forget the logic, forget the Kal V'chomers, you're rejected because you do not, you're not able to bring up the sacrifice, so therefore you don't partake in it. Now, that was scene one. Scene two. Scene two is, Yisrael. The Tvul Yom comes and he says to the Kohen, give me from the chatas Yisrael. I want a portion of the sin offering of a Jew. The ochel, I want to eat it. So Amar Lei tells him, listen, where my koach, the kosher, the pure Kohen says, my strength is so weak by the flour offering, because by the flour offering, even me, the pure Kohen, if I were to bring a mincha, I cannot partake in it. So, and I still could push you away. I still don't have to give you a portion of the mincha. So, Abba Yisrael's mincha, because you're a tvul yom, you're impure. Makom sheyafe kochi bechatasi, eino din shadicha mechatz Yisrael. For sure, in the place where it's so strong, my portion, because the chatas of a Kohen, even when it's not your day, if you were to bring it, you get a portion. For sure, I could throw you away. I could push you away from giving you a portion of the sin offering of a Jew. To that, the Tvul Yom, the impure Kohen, says back to him, no, very different. I understand why you could push me away from giving me a portion of the flour offering of a regular Yisrael. Why? I get it. We're both in the same boat. We both don't get a portion. So in that case, we're equal, so you can push me away. But we're both in the same boat. We both, if we were to bring our own sin offerings, we both get a portion. So there we're in the same boat. So how could you push me away? He says, okay. So Harei Omer, because the pasuk says, the one who sprinkles the blood, he'll be the one that gets to eat a portion. You Tvul Yom, you person who's impure, who's waiting sunset to become pure, so you cannot sprinkle the blood, so therefore you don't get a portion. But at the end of the day, both the mincha offering, the flour offering, and the chatas offering, the reason why the Tvul Yom cannot have a portion is because he either can't bring up the sacrifice or he cannot sprinkle the blood up. He's disqualified. Scene number 3.
This week has to be weak. How do you decide when you're stronger and when you're weaker?
Stronger means categorically. Categorically, a Kohen has more of a stronghold in it. Because what? If we're Kohanim and our week is coming up in June, Sivan, right? So today, we don't get a portion of the meat. But if you and I come to bring our own sin offering, even though it's not our day, we get a portion. So you see that the chatas, our stake is much stronger in the sin offering because we can get a portion even when it's not our day. It's our sin offering. The opposite case is the flour offering. Our flour offering, even when we voluntarily bring a flour offering, we get 0. So the chatas is categorically a stronger hold because you can get it even when it's not your day. And the flour offering is the weakest hold, so to speak, because even when we bring it, we still get nothing from it. So that's the question, how do you apply that when it's another Jew's sin offering or another Jew's flour offering? Yeah. Let's try one more. Amarle, the Tvul Yom, the one who's impure, is waiting nightfall to become pure. Now it's by a shlomim offering. A shlomim, he says, Tailing mechaz of shuk. I want some of the breast and the thigh. Oh, I want to partake. I want to eat. So Amarle, the pure Kohen, tells him back. A chatas offering, which is so strong, our hold in the chatas is so strong, and yet I could still push you away from giving you a portion of a Jew sin offering. So so for sure our strength is weakened. Shlomim is interesting. You only get part of it, only the breast and the thigh, not the other parts. That's called a weaker. You have a weaker strength, and you get less. For sure, I could push you away from giving you a portion of the Yisrael Shlomim. So to that, the guy says back, the impure Kohen says back, yeah, but my I understand why the chatas offering you push me away, because there it can only go to the male Kohanim. I can't give it to my wife and I can't give it to my servant. So there I understand. But I have a stronger hold. I can share with all my friends, or at least with my wife and my servants. So that counters your logic with his logic. Fine. He says, Harei Omer la Kohen hazorik as Adam, to the Kohen that throws the blood of the Shlamim, lo yihiyeh. To him, he gets a portion. Buzz zarik v'achol. Only someone who's fitting to throw the blood. The Tvul Yom, who's impure, he can't throw the blood, can't sprinkle the blood. So Yatzat Tvul Yom. He is excluded. So Folio v'chamar of Arosho. His logic of his leniencies and stringencies stays on his head, meaning we're not going to be able to apply it. And onein miyamino and mechusar kapar this mismo. Interesting phraseology. The onein is on his right, and the mechusar kapar, the one who's waiting to bring a sacrifice to become pure, is on his left. All of these people cannot partake. They cannot bring the sacrifices. They can't sprinkle the blood. They cannot partake either.